recording. All right, welcome this afternoon for the second time for the Board of County Commission meeting. And as always, we start with a prayer reading or thought and the Pledge of Allegiance. We have Chaplain Linda Walton that is here, and she's volunteered to do the prayer reading or thought. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Just looking for a volunteer. Wendy, how about you? Okay. Chaplain.
Let's pray together. Our dear Father in heaven, we are grateful to have this opportunity to meet together. We are grateful that we have a government that allows us to have a voice and that gives us the right to vote on things. And we just pray that you will give us all wisdom, those that are leading and those of us in the audience that have opinions, that we will bring those forth so that we can make a difference in our community that we love so much. Father, we pray that you will be with us throughout the remainder of this year as there are many holiday and other things going on that make it very busy. And we don't want to forget you in all of this because you're the one that made it possible for us. Again, Father, we are so grateful for the many blessings you've given us, and we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, both of you, for participating with us in that and leading us in both those. We do have two recognitions. The first one is a recognition of the Employee of the Month. Commissioner?
This is on behalf of Sergeant Justin Gordon. I don't see him here. Is he? Oh, there he is in the front row, of course. Well, several people conspired against you, Sergeant. It says, I'd like to nominate Sergeant Justin Gordon for Utah County Employee of the Month. Sergeant Gordon exemplifies what is expected of a Utah County employee. He is committed and dedicated to serving all citizens of the Utah County. His efforts in law enforcement make our community a safer place, along with representing himself and the county in a positive light. He has vast amount of experience in narcotics work, with especially at the SET team, Major Crimes Task Force, Patrol, Investigation, K-9 Handler, and currently gaining experience as Sergeant over Search and Rescue. Sergeant Gordon came to work for Utah County in June of 2012 and has been a valuable asset to the County Sheriff's Office since. Within a few months after coming to work, Sergeant Gordon was selected to work on Utah County's SET team. This team specializes in and targets street-level drug users and drug sellers. Sergeant Gordon's experience and knowledge in these investigations made the Utah County SET team a great success and has arrested hundreds of suspects who distribute illegal substances into our community. Sergeant Gordon has consistently been a leader in many statistical categories. He is extremely productive and goes out of his way to assist citizens with calls for assistance. I've had many and multiple citizens comment on his professionalism and the all-around way he interacts with others. He is a team player. He always is willing to help the other deputies who have less experience. They feel comfortable in approaching him for his assistance or answer questions due to his vast amount of experiences and his overall demeanor. I have full confidence in his abilities to make decisions, take on administrative tasks. He is an asset to the Sheriff's Office and the citizens of our Utah County. Sergeant Gordon is a great example of humility and dedication. He truly enjoys what he does and in turn sets a positive atmosphere to those around him. He is deserving, I should say well deserving, of the recognition for which he does daily while working for Utah County.
You have a chance to speak if you'd like to.
Or deny.
I appreciate the recognition. Just a cog in the wheel of working with a great department and great people, and been working with search and rescue over the last 2.5 years has been a great change of pace for me at helping people in a different way. But thank you for the recognition.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Anybody that can sport a good haircut like that should be recognized, I think.
Sheriff Smith, he's not here to talk about him anyway.
is here. He's right there. All right. Well done. We do have another presentation, and Commissioner, I believe
We have
this is yours too.
we have Mr. Edwards here for that. I should say retired Sergeant Major Randy Edwards, United States Army.
Thank you, Commissioners. It's a privilege to be here, and especially in this setting. We'd like to recognize the Utah County Public Defenders. If we could have them to please stand. And if we could have Tom Means to come forward. It's very rare that the employer supported the Guard and Reserve give this above and beyond award, because this award is truly above and beyond any Patriot Award that we can present. We want to, at this particular time, present this on, let the captain present this award to his employer. Say thank you for your services to all, and to supporting our veterans in the Guard and Reserve. We also have a second award here, and this is for Tom Means. This is the Patriot Award. We give this to employers who support their veterans that are gone on guard duty, had gone and they have to go to school. They have two-week drills, and it takes a lot of sacrifice on an employer to let one of their employees go, because they have to fill in, and sometimes it's not easy to do that. But for me, this is even more of a privilege, because I got to have the opportunity to work with this great man on the Veterans Treatment Court. So this award goes to Tom Means, and it's from the Secretary of Defense. Thank you. We're going to have Captain Young pin the Employer Supported Guard pin on him. Great, thank you.
Thank you
And
very
I think
much.
somebody wanted to say something.
Yeah, deputies.
Only gonna take a second. But since Tom Means was being honored, I just thank you so much for bearing with me. Just 1 minute of your time. Tom has been at the Public Defender's Office for 20 plus years. I've had the privilege of working with him for over 20 years. And I just want everyone to know what an amazing supervisor he is. Our office is here today in support of him. He has guided us through the difficult task at times of being a public defender team and all the complications and bumps that come with that. He is very loyal. He's very supportive of us. We always know that we can rely on Tom for anything that we need. Tom is the final decision maker in terms of the Veterans Court assignment, and he's always chosen to be part of Veterans Court because he's very much committed to the important work that they do. He is an amazing boss. I know I kind of sound like a balloon or a cup where I say he is the best boss ever, but truly he is. And so I just wanted to get up and say a few words on his behalf and on behalf of the office that's here today.
right, thank you. I was wondering how that was all going to work when I saw you walking up, and I was like,
Makes sense.
do you want a picture? Do you want a picture with them?
You know what we should?
Huh?
Yeah, Tom Means.
Tom?
Randy?
Why don't you come back up? We'll,
Come up
we'll,
here where
we'll get a
public-
picture with you too.
I gotta have my mask on when I do it. Stand bureaucracy.
Ah, yes.
Because I'm doing this with the SGR, this is mandatory. I like that. Why do I have an officer?
All right, thank you for that. As the room sort of clears, those are good things. Looking at our agenda, you'll notice from our agenda that we have a consent agenda that is underlined. There's nothing underneath that. We are going to go through a process, and I assume that we'll start to fill that agenda up. And how we'll do that is from our regular agenda. If we hold it, it will stay on regular agenda for discussion and conversation and a vote. If it goes onto our consent agenda, which we don't hold, it will just automatically go on the consent agenda to be either ratified, approved, adopted, or as stated on our agenda. And so we've all gone through these on an individual basis, and if it looks like none of us has any concerns with them, then we'll just have them move to the consent agenda side. So with that, let's start with items number 1 through 10.
Striking item number 7.
Strike number 7. We'll leave it on the consent to strike number 7. If we can hold number 5. Any others?
Nope.
Okay.
Items 6 and 8 just do need a qualification that that approval is contingent upon the granting of an access easement, and that the deed and the access easement be recorded simultaneously. So with that qualification,
And that's not in, that language is not in there?
correct.
So, okay, that's a good point to
So
point
you
out.
will add that to it then with this
Yeah, let's add that.
approval?
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you for that. So with that, if there's no objection to it, we'll leave those two on, or those on consent with
Concur.
the addition.
Yep.
Okay, items number 11 through 20.
Hold item number 18.
Hold item number 18. Okay. Just a note that we have established on item number 19, our meeting schedule for next year. And so that's on there also with the Board of Equalization. So those are on there, but leave it on consent. Okay, items 21 through, I'll go through 28. That goes to the end of my page anyway.
Yeah, mine as well. I have item number 21.
21 needs to be held,
Yep.
yes.
Like to do that, yes.
Any others?
Not that I can see.
Okay,
And 28 is related to 29. I had not seen it until earlier, so I'd like to confirm a couple of things on that.
on 28 and 29?
Yeah, they're related.
Okay,
One
well-
Saratoga Springs, one Spanish Fork.
hold 28 and 29 then. Okay, and then items 30 through 36.
34 and 35.
34, 35, 36. I would like to table item 33. That's all right?
Yeah.
Sure, do that for a closed session review and then come back. Okay.
Okay, and then on our closed meetings, 37, 38, 39, and 40, I've got notification that we need 37, and then 40 is one that we may need for today, and then we also need to schedule a separate meeting for that one. Do we need items 38 and 39?
No?
Okay, so we can leave it on consent to strike items 38 and 39 from our agenda. And then also to hold number 37 and 40. Do we need 40 today and in a future date too, Dave?
Future date,
Just the future date only?
yeah, I don't know for sure when that date is. But let's just set it and we can discuss it and continue it to whatever needs to continue to.
Will we know that by today, or do we need to set? Okay, so
Hold
we'll
it
just
for
hold it for
closing
now.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll hold, so then we will hold number 37 and 40 and approve and set a date, time, and location for discussion of 37 and 40 as written on our agenda. We'll leave that on consent for that. Okay, Alice, you could go back and give us a recap of
Okay, I
where
have
we're
us,
at.
you bet. I have us holding number 5. Number 6 is approved on consent with the contingencies that Dave Shawcroft had stated, as well as number 8. Number 7 is stricken on consent. Then we're holding number 18. 19 is approved on consent with the addition of the BOE dates. 21 is held. 28 is held. Also holding 29. Tabling 33. Holding 34, 35, 36. And then for closed meetings, we're going to hold as stated 37 and 40, and striking 38 and 39.
That's it.
That's what I have. Okay, so to recap that, those items that we held, which Alice read off, will be left on our regular agenda. All the others will go on consent as stated or as modified, as we modified them to be on consent. Any questions to that?
No.
Any public comments to those items that we put on consent? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to item number 5. Item number 5 is property tax actions. And Adam? The only thing we don't have is a roving mic. It looks like we probably should get something like that, but. Do you want one? No, I can get one. Okay. So Paul, you're gonna take these?
Well, I'm actually just helping out on the McKell matter. So
Okay.
if you're willing to take that one first, I'll address that, and then
Okay,
Adam will take over for
that's
the
the
other
first on
ones.
my list.
Yeah, he said it was first, so.
Okay, can you kind of go through and explain what's going on here with this one?
Yeah, so my understanding is on this property, they sold off a portion of the property or developed a portion of the property, and in the process subdivided a portion out, and they ended up, they had pulled the whole property out of Greenbelt, and now that was in 2020. It sounds like their intention was to leave part of it in Greenbelt.
And they paid. They pulled, They pulled it all out
They pulled it all out in 2020, paid the rollback on the whole thing.
for the whole thing.
And then they got their tax assessment, tax valuation for this parcel, which was subdivided from the front parcel, and realized that the back parcel was being assessed according to fair market value. And their assertion is that they meant to leave that one in Greenbelt. And so when they got the full assessment, they were surprised. And now they're asking for tax relief on this parcel because they had intended for it to remain in Greenbelt. I think that's the situation.
Which is interesting because they paid the rollback on the whole property.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
So they're trying to
and
make
so-
a correction then.
What's that,
They're
Commissioner?
they're trying to make a correction.
Yeah, the request is simply on the 2021 taxes. So they paid the full rollback in 2020, and then they got the full assessment in 2021. And now they're asking for tax relief on the 2021 assessment.
On a portion.
Yeah. So the part that's not being developed. So part of it is being developed, and part of it is supposedly, according to them, not being developed. And they want to leave the second part on Greenbelt. So that's
They haven't requested a refund of the rollback for that portion.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay.
According to, yeah, that's right. Yeah, the request is simply relief of the 2021 taxes.
And it is actively being farmed.
Well, I don't know that. And so actually,
Alfalfa.
you'd see that our recommendation is to deny this because they want this treated like it's on Greenbelt, and yet we don't really know if it qualifies for Greenbelt. Our recommendation would be to allow them to apply to get onto Greenbelt in 2022. That would be I think the commissioners would be in a much better position to take an action on this once you know whether or not this parcel is going to get back into Greenbelt.
Was there an application filed on it?
I know that they received an application. I don't think they've submitted it yet.
It has not been submitted completed. It's not completed. It's not signed.
Has it been submitted incomplete?
It's been submitted incomplete.
Okay.
Yeah, so the assessor's office, I'm not sure if the mic picked that up, but just to repeat it, the information is that they've submitted an application and it wasn't signed, it wasn't complete, but at any rate, it
Only
certainly
thing
has.
missing was the signature. Is that right?
And proof of production.
Okay.
Proof of production. So that would be our main recommendation, is to wait until we find out whether or not it qualifies for Greenbelt. Then you'd be more informed on it. If the commissioners are in a position where you're ready to move on this or consider a deferral and abatement, then the recommendation would be to make it contingent on qualifying for Greenbelt in 2022 and remaining in Greenbelt for 5 years, and deferring the tax for the 5-year period, and then abating it once it's been in Greenbelt for 5 years, so in 2027.
Yeah, but I think we're mixing a couple things together
I
on
was
that,
just
aren't
thinking
we?
the same thing.
I mean, that's where if they were in Greenbelt and they.
It was like a new
you know,
thing.
Yeah, that's not, I mean, we have discretion on there where we could change that parameter just a little bit.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to go to the 5-year.
Yeah.
Certainly understand you have discretion, but the recommendation is made to ensure that the county can at any time collect a 5-year rollback. The request is basically saying that they want to be treated in 2021 as if they were in Greenbelt. Now, you cannot put them in Greenbelt in 2021. All you can do is provide tax relief. And so But to be treated like they were on Greenbelt would be to be able to capture that rollback at any time in the next 5 years if they're withdrawn. So for example, if you abate the property tax today and they get in Greenbelt in 2022 and they pull out of Greenbelt in 2023, we're only going to be able to collect a rollback for 2023 and 2022, but not 2021. So they would get $10,000 of tax relief, basically trying to look like they're on Greenbelt, and yet we wouldn't have the ability to roll back that 2021 amount because you will have abated it. So the recommendation is that you don't abate it until they're in Greenbelt for 5 years. That way, if they're ever withdrawn, we can call that tax due, and it would look like it's part of the rollback.
Right. So the 5-year rollback on this, though, is to collect something that has not been paid, where this has been. So we've got a 1-year gap.
No, this has not been paid, is my understanding.
The rollback has on the whole parcel.
Right, but they're not. They're asking for relief on the 2021 regular taxes.
Right. Yeah. So follow with me on this.
Okay.
So they've already paid the rollback taxes on 20 prior. 2021, they've been assessed for the whole
fair market value.
the fair market value. And they're looking for a difference between what would be Greenbelt and what their fair market value is. And whatever that dollar amount is the question mark that they're trying to get tax relief for.
Right.
If we were to go into and say, okay, we agree with you, we'll give you that the tax rebate on that into 2022, and say, okay, 2022, now you're in Greenbelt, and if you're in Greenbelt the whole year, if they were to give that up after 1 year, they would still have to pay that 1 year back. But you're saying not the 2021 because that one's been abated, right?
That's right.
Right. And so where does that actually catch itself up? Is it in 2020?
2020. It would be in 2027.
So you say you have to go the whole 5 years to catch that up.
Yeah.
Not this current year.
Yeah, because we can only roll back to 2022. We can't roll back 2021.
Right.
So the only way to fairly to make this look like it was on Greenbelt the whole time would be to defer it for 5 years.
That would also mean if it was Greenbelt the whole time that we would give them back the money they paid in the rollback. Because otherwise they've already paid a rollback.
Right. Well, they paid the
That's the other
rollback
end
from
of it.
2020, from 2015 to 2020.
Right.
Which they're not asking for, but we have done it before where we have deferred that.
Like, so here's my issue. If they paid a rollback for 2015 to 2020, and then we're going to ask them to pay a rollback again,
Every time it's pulled off of Greenbelt, there is a rollback.
right?
Yeah. Now, again, remember, they voluntarily pulled this off of Greenbelt. The county didn't withdraw them from Greenbelt. They came in, filled out the forms. They pulled it off themselves.
Right.
And, it's...
As long as the land is being actively farmed, I'm okay abating this year and saying, okay, in the future, if they pull it off, we can't charge them rollback for 2021 because I think they've already paid 5 years of rollback.
Yeah, I'm leaning toward that direction.
I see it, but I still think that we need to get them back on Greenbelt with the application.
I agree. Like
I
I'm
don't
okay
think we can do
deferring
anything
until I'm okay deferring until after we've got them back on Greenbelt.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
So if you were to abate that, you would never have a chance to get a rollback for 2021.
Right. I'm okay with that.
They would be better off than anyone else on Greenbelt. They will
Except
get a
that they've already
benefit that
paid
no one else
rollback.
gets, even those on Greenbelt.
That's why I don't mind personally, I wouldn't mind having a year or two in there. So 2022 and 2023 have to be on Greenbelt, or else they would pay that back, what we're deferring now.
Yeah, I can see that.
If they don't
an
make
okay
it till
compromise for me.
2023 on
Yeah.
Greenbelt, then they have to pay back the 2020.
Yeah, I could see that.
2021.
So that if it's like a year, if it's just a year delay in development, then
Right.
Right. I could see that. Yeah, I could compromise there.
So if they get withdrawn in 2024, they'll only have a 3-year, they'll pay 2024, 2023, 2022,
Right.
but 2021 would not get rolled back, it would just get abated.
No, because we would defer it until then.
Well,
So
you're
what he's saying is,
Well, the suggestion was to only defer it until 2023.
right.
So if in 2024, they pull out a Greenbelt,
Well, they can't pay rollback for 2020 anyway because they already have.
They can't go back 5 years, but they could go back.
no, I'm just saying
Those
that, yeah, you would
3
go back
years.
until 2022, because that would be the beginning of the new
But what I'm saying
Greenbelt.
is we would defer the abatement until then. So they wouldn't actually get an abatement. It would be deferred taxes.
Until 2023.
Yeah.
So in 2024, the next year, if they were to be withdrawn from Greenbelt, then you would get the rollback only back until 2022, and 2021 would simply be abated, and we wouldn't be able to get a rollback for that year. Just letting you know the impact of that decision.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. I think we have
Yeah.
to think that through a little
Yeah,
bit, but
I don't think we're ready to
maybe
vote
this
on
is
this.
one that we have to continue until
I think so.
we get an application. If it's just a signature, hopefully maybe we can give them a call and get that.
But we can't do anything
up.
until we have an application for Greenbelt. I agree.
Yeah, they have the application. If it's just a signature and proof of production,
And proof of production.
And even then, it would have to be reviewed, and that would go to Board of Equalization.
Right.
For
Which means we
review
need to
if it's denied.
continue this for a time.
Yeah, that's only if it's denied.
Otherwise, you wouldn't see it, it would just get approved. They could let you know that it's been approved.
Right.
yeah.
Agreed.
So how do we word that, Paul?
I
So
think
that happens.
Continue this till after the next BOE meeting.
Well, I don't know if it's possible to continue it until there's a decision made on the application. If the assessor's office would notify either my office or your office when that decision is made. We can bring this back up. You could continue this item without date, and we'll keep track of it,
Okay.
and then we can bring it back once the application has been processed, and then we can bring it back.
Okay.
It works for me.
Then I'll motion that we continue this for a date to be to be determined.
I'll second that motion.
Hold on a second. I think we need to do that all as one block, don't we?
Well, you could pull that out and vote
Okay,
on that
so-
one item.
We'll consider that pulled out.
Like,
Yes.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to continue this one item that's on the agenda, item for now. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that passes 3-0. Okay, Adam, the only question I have is on the Snow, Donald and Ann Snow Trust.
okay.
If you can kind of walk through this a little bit so I can understand it better, it sounds to me like they're wanting to go back. It sounds to me like their parents passed away apparently, and they got this property, and during that period of time, it had a certain value to it, and then it was adjusted based on that it wasn't a buildable lot, and they want to go back now and capture money. Is that what I'm hearing on this? Capture money that their parents owned this
That's
property.
exactly right.
Is that what this is?
Yeah, so the parents have been paying as if it was a buildable lot. All parties involved were under the impression that it was a buildable lot until, like you said, as they were preparing to sell it, that's when the testing done found out because of seismic reasons it's not a buildable lot. And so they came to the county just like they normally do and had it adjusted. The previous year it was valued at $180,000, but because it's not buildable, it was valued at $10,000. And so from this point on, it's a greatly reduced value. So they've received that lower assessment. Now they're saying, well, we want to capture, we'd like to go back and get to the value, get reimbursed for as if the last 10 years it was not buildable, but it wasn't not buildable until 2020. That's when that testing was done. And so our recommendation is that there was no county error here. We were all made aware of it at the same time. And so our recommendation is denying that.
Okay, accept that. Any questions to it?
Do we know, is there like a trust involved at all, or is this?
The trust.
Is it,
There
so
is a
it's the
trust.
trust. So the
Yeah.
trust would have owned the property, and then the trust is asking for the,
Well, we don't know on what date ownership changed, but at least currently it's in trust.
it's in trust. Okay. I just want to make sure, because if someone had sold it to somebody else, they would not be eligible to apply for this. But if it was in a trust, then they can. Okay.
Is that item, Dave, germane to this?
Well, it might be if the current owner is not the entity that actually paid the taxes previously. I mean, I don't see how that has an effect on the recommendation, because the recommendation is to deny it, because it wouldn't really be relevant, but it would be an additional factor to deny it if the current applicant, the current owner, was in fact not the owner
Okay.
that paid those prior taxes. Then they don't really have the claim to assert.
Okay. I'm inclined to go along with the staff recommendations on that and deny that item, snow trust item.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
second on that.
Yeah, I'm a second on that.
Oh,
We don't have to second, it's
well,
not a
okay,
motion.
never mind.
Because we're going with the staff
Let's go.
recommendation.
Yeah, we'll just
Yeah.
go back to our agenda item. So our agenda item number 5 is to approve the property tax actions
With the
Including
exception of the
with-
one we pulled out and
with the
continued.
exception of, the
McHale
McHale
piece.
one that
Yeah.
we pulled out separately.
Yeah.
So is there a motion to do so?
I will move to approve item number 5 with the exception of the McKell property, which will be continued to a future date.
And I will second that motion.
Got a motion and a second to approve agenda item number 5 with the exception noted. All in favor, say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Okay. Number 7, we struck that one already. Number 18.
Yeah. So on number 18, the reason I held this one is there was no supporting documentation. This was over the amount to either need bids or basically to need bids, and I did not see any supporting documentation.
Yet, in the original email we got for this, there was an indication that the bid process had been completed. So I'm suggesting one of two avenues. One would be to continue it a week or to approve it subject to purchasing agent approval of the bidding process.
I'm fine continuing it a week and seeing if we can just get all that in. So, okay, thank you. I will move to continue item number 18 for 1 week.
And I will second that.
Motion and a second to continue item number 18 for 1 week. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay, number 21 is to receive the recommended proposal for an RFP for financial audit services. And there was only 2 that applied. Well, Robert, I'll just let you take it from here.
Robert Baxter, Purchasing. Yes, there were 2 proposals received from Gilbert and Stewart and from Squire. The evaluation committee ranked Gilbert and Stewart as number 1 and Squire as number 2.
Okay, any comments?
How did you come to the weighing the scale there on the selection process?
Well, there were a number of criteria. Responsiveness to the proposal, experience and reputation of the firm, qualifications and expertise of the staff, ability to maintain independence and objectivity, and the proposed fees.
So the number 1 pick, we've had them for how many years now is what made me think about that.
Quite a while. It's
Over
been-
30. And that was going to be, that was going to be my comment as well.
I had met with them on a different topic some time ago, and I think they started back in '89. So I'm just curious that maybe it's time to open a window to a different group, just for variety's sake.
Yeah, I agree. So those were going to be my comments as well. I know that the Gilbert and Stewart bid was significantly less money. However, the recommendations from the Government Finance Officers Association recommend that you should switch your auditing firm periodically. We are over, not just a few years over, we're a few decades.
32 years, I think.
Yeah,
Close to
32
it.
years is what I remembered as well. And we are a few decades over the recommendation of best practices to switch. I have no issue with the services we've received from Gilbert and Stewart in the past. However, having the same external auditing firm for 32 years, I agree that it may behoove us to pay a little bit more money and get a fresh set of eyes.
Yeah, and do we have a term of 5 years? Is this have we discussed this in the past, limit these audits in the future? You want to rotate these with 5-year windows? Is there a certain standard?
Typically the recommendation from the Government Finance Officers Association is that you should put it out to bid every 5 years. So that's why the 5-year term on the contract does make sense, because we should put it out to bid every 5 years. And then their recommendation is that you really shouldn't ever go more than 3 cycles with the same audit firm, which is, at the max would be 15 years, and we're at 32.
Yeah, I brought that up because I wonder if we should embed that into code somehow, so that way in the future, when we're all gone, someone else has taken us, so we might consider that as part of the process.
It's not a bad recommendation. My only hesitation to putting it in the code is, for example, like this time we only received 2 bids, and if one of them was someone that we'd had for multiple years, and the other one was, $500,000 more.
Oh, sure, yes. Yeah,
Right. So I don't want to tie future commissions into making a poor choice. But in this instance, I'm inclined to give the bid to the number 2 person just because we've had Gilbert and Stewart for over 32 years. And once again, I want to reiterate, I've got no problem with the service we've received from them. It's just when we're decades past the recommendation from best practices, it might not be a bad idea to mix it up a little.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I totally agree with that being the highest criteria. I mean, if that was the highest criteria, we should have put it in the RFP. And it was not in the RFP. And I'd like to, Dave, what's your opinion? I know you're on that committee, but and I read down through I read every single one of the words and the rankings, because I did have a concern on that same level. But on a legal perspective, when it comes to looking at a group, and they've been here for 30 years, what is that? It didn't seem to raise as high a level from the rankings as it seems to be here.
I know that was sort of incorporated in the ability to have a non-biased view. So you could argue that is in that factor, and that's why I considered it, but it was not specifically stated as a disqualifying factor in the RFP. And when you go through and see the rating scores and the balance that you have to apply to each, including the cost allocation that has a fixed amount, at least when I did my analysis, it wasn't even close with regard to who was the number 1, that it was by far number 1 with Gilbert and Stewart. However, I mean, if we had put that in, that was a major factor and that it had a weight of like 80%, whether you had done it on the prior year or not, that would be a better justification for not going with the number 1. But when I looked at it and given the difference in the price, it was significant, as Commissioner Gardner has indicated.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's my concern is that we put it out to a committee to review it and review it based on the criteria that were set forth, and the scores were all 3 pretty close in the ranking process, up in the upper 90s if I remember correctly, on the ranking. So it gives me pause because I originally started the same way, thinking, okay, well, is that 30 years sufficient enough to say that's the whole motivating factor? I probably started that way, but after looking down through and what came back from the committee on there, I'm second guessing that being the top pick for saying let's go with the number 2, because the price, the price has to mean something on there, and the services, and there was another factor in there too. Amount of hours that they would actually provide is significantly less. It's not just the dollar amount. There was hours provided that were significantly less too.
Correct.
And so we're getting less and paying more, and that just that bothers me, especially when when we know Gilbert and Stewart and the work they've done. And it's hard for me to just kind of jump past everything and say it's because they've been here for 30 years, 30 plus years.
The contract would be for 1 year?
5 years.
5 years solid, so.
Well, we could put in some mitigating factors. So, because this is to send it for negotiation. So, for example, we could ask that different staff be assigned to this. For example, if we did go with Gilbert and Stewart, we could say we want different staff so that they have fresh eyes.
Well, they actually do that. When I read down through it, they rotate their staff so we don't get the same staff.
Yeah,
Well, obviously, we're
think
not getting
their
the same staff
proposal-
for 32 years. But
At least I think their proposal here, my understanding was that it is different staff
Yeah.
than what they have been using.
and maybe shortening the duration instead of another 5 years, maybe 3. I mean, because that would put us at 37 years. That's almost 40 years with the same firm.
If we did that, we'd have to send out another RFP. We'd have to reject the whole thing, though, because we're given a new playing field if we shorten the time frame.
I don't recall if it was.
I don't think so.
If it was clear with regard to the length. I think that was a possibility, up to 5 years.
Is that the language, up to?
I don't recall.
I
Because
think
if
you could
it's
anticipate a 5-year contract, but you'd have to check that.
Because if it's up to 5 years, then we could approve a 1 year, and then narrow the RFP a little bit more, but something to think about.
Another option would go with the 5 years, but next time when you put out an RFP, indicate a heavy weight with regard to a period of time that you've been with the county, so that that's factored in and everyone knows that that's there when they make their bids.
Yeah, so we could include good practices as a reference to why we wanted to limit the number of awards.
And I understand that some entities have that recommendation, but there are many entities that do not make that change that often.
The RFP does say that the period covered would be 2021 through 2025, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it'd be the end of 25, or is end of 21 to 22 is 1?
So they'll be auditing
So
the years
4
21.
years.
It's 5 years, the years of 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25.
All years, okay.
Can you remind me what the cost difference is? I can remember it was significant, but I can't remember the exact amount.
My recollection is about 50% more.
Yeah, it was like 52,000 compared to about 75, 76 per year.
I was looking at, over the 5 years,
Yeah.
I think it was about a 50% difference.
And,
Right.
and services were significant different.
Pardon me?
And services was significantly
The amount
different.
of hours.
The amount of hours were almost double, I believe, with regard to Gilbert and Stewart.
Well,
Yeah, the cost doesn't necessarily bother me as much because $20,000 a year to me is worth it, but the amount of time put in is probably more. Do we know that time put in, did they specify whether it would be on-site or remote?
I don't believe there was a breakdown.
I don't think so.
Each of them indicated that there would be some on-site, but I don't recall any breakdown from hours.
All the work of the committee's put into this, I feel painted
I'm
in
just
a
thinking.
corner, and I'm feeling awkward in that because I'm not sure if I enjoy the what's being dealt.
So even with the amount of hours, that is, like I said, the money is less significant to me because the cost of $20,000 a year to get a new set of eyes on our books, I think it would probably be worth it in the grand scheme of things. But the number of hours is, I think, a really important thing. I think as we look at negotiating this contract, I would probably be okay with it if we leaned towards maybe a few more on-site hours. I mean, the 2.5 years that I served as auditor, I think I met our external auditors twice. So they say they're spending a lot of hours, but I have no way to verify that.
I think that would be something we could put into the contract. The RFP wasn't specific with that requirement, but that could be a negotiation item.
It would, I mean, it's of note that the external auditors is a function of the commission. And so,
Yes.
Yeah, but if they're auditing the financial processes, they should be sitting in the financial offices
well,
at
they should be in
times.
the financial offices. I'm just,
Right.
you know, they should be getting the information, but the direction and the course direction of what they do and what it should come from the commission. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with more hours on site. If they need more hours on site, I don't want them necessarily getting all the information they have and then sitting up there, you know, in the auditor's office, just getting the hour.
Well, yeah, but they could open their laptop and work while they were sitting there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. What are you thinking, Commissioner Sakovic?
We had talked about it, but we didn't talk in a formal setting. But I was anxious that we had fresher eyes on an occasional basis, but I don't think we ever gave that as direction to the committee. And so I'm feeling a little chagrined that I failed in that area. Because if Squire and Gilbert have been with us for 32 years, I'm anxious for new sets of eyes, but at the same time, I'm looking at the cost differences, and they're not significant per se. But I'm anxious what kind of hours are they putting on site, which to support our external reviews each year.
Yeah, and I was disappointed to see only 2 replies to the RFP,
Yeah.
right? I would have liked to have more variety.
May we send this back out and asking for a larger field of applicants? Or did you already put out a very large field?
I think that would open us up
Yeah,
for
I mean,
liability.
it is an option to reject all offers and redo it, but there's no telling if we'd get any more than we got.
For external auditing on local government, these 2 are the standard. They used to be one firm 50 years ago. They were the same firm.
Yeah,
They
Squire
split.
has been involved in a lot of government types, and James and Gilbert, of course, have been. They're both pretty
and
well
they
known.
rotate their staff per their own requirements and best practices. So, I mean, you think about a small community or a very rural area, who are they going to contract with for external audit? And that's why these firms, they rotate the managing partner that oversees a particular client so that you do have a different set of eyes, so to speak, that are conducting external audit activities.
Yeah, I'm just looking for a new conductor of the orchestra.
There's a deadline to get the audit completed too, so that would have to be a factor. If we start over, that will delay.
And that's a statutory deadline.
And then what was that date again?
I don't recall. Do you remember the call? Deadline, June?
Is it June 30th? I think it's June
I'm
30th.
thinking June 30th, but
That's when I think it is. I think it's June 30th.
And span of time, a
For them to be
team
done.
needs,
That's the deadline that we have to submit the audit to the
Right.
state auditor's
and the
office.
span of time the team needs to actually do it is what?
Well, they can't necessarily start doing it till we close our books. So I would say probably, I mean, it easily takes between 60 and 120 days,
So up to 4 months.
up to 4 months. So we would have to have a complete RFP and a decision and a contract signed by February.
Okay, then I will motion.
I don't know that it was that we'd have a broader.
Yeah, and we may not
exposure.
even get a broader
Yes.
selection.
Yeah, I think, to
So
my knowledge, it went out to a large group.
based on all of this, I think we will need to stay with the number one nominee provided by the committee.
I can go with that.
Got a motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I got a motion and a second that we receive the recommendations, and the selection is the Gilbert and Stewart, the same one that the committee came back with. All in favor, say aye.
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 That passes 3-0.
As we move to the negotiation phase, I wouldn't mind a little more on-site time.
Yeah, let's follow up with that separately.
Okay, number 28
And 29.
and 29, you want to address those together?
Yes.
Tell those? Okay.
Yes. Ben, can you, my question was, these are modular units, so they're mobile, if I'm not misreading this. And we're buying them,
Ben.
and we will use them we're anticipating for the current COVID and the variations that come out is what my anticipation of that will be. And we don't know how long that will take afterwards. But what's the plan with the units once we're finished using the mobile shots?
And if I could clarify that, Commissioner, we need to change the wording from purchase to lease.
Lease.
And so this is just a lease, and I think that clarifies or should address your concern.
Lease.
It is just for a lease, right? And that was previously approved by the commission as a lease. And my apologies, it got put on the agenda as a purchase.
We'll talk later. How's that, Ben?
That sounds great.
All right, so the lease is for how long again? Ben?
Let me pull it up real quick here.
While he's doing that.
Unless Peter Quitner is out. Peter's
Peter
there in
Quitner's
person. He
here.
might be able to.
He could probably, and while
Yes.
you're coming up here, could you also answer the question? You're good. I'm wondering, is FEMA covering these?
Peter Quitner, Utah County Emergency Management. The cost of these facilities are paid for, allowable by FEMA until through the month of March, until April 1st. Unless it were to get extended, then they would be covered for a longer period of time.
Okay.
To answer your first question, I think we did a 6-month with the option to extend. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, so we're trying to prepare best we can. So we do understand that the first couple months of this will be the PA grant allowable and be covered, but then it would have to be covered by other funds such as the ARPA funds.
Okay.
And that was very helpful.
Thank you, Peter.
Anything more to add to that, Ben?
Nope.
Sorry, what was?
So I'm not sure if this has gone through our ARPA process yet.
I don't have
remember it
memory
being
of
it.
on our list.
I don't remember being on our list either.
Are we currently in use of these, Peter?
No.
Sorry, what was that question?
Well, if we're using the PA grant, that's one thing, and that's about 4 months, it looks like, right? And then, so it's the other 2 months, the 5 and 6, because the lease goes for 6 months.
Yeah.
So there's 2 months that are not covered by any funding right now. And they're eligible for the ARPA, but we have not filled out the form or gone through the ARPA process to see if that's been considered or not.
I have worked with Monica and Peter Brown on this. I don't know if they've done that form. I have not done that form for the ARPA process, but we have been working through those individuals.
Right.
Yeah, I think
The
I think
point
they
is-
just assumed FEMA, but you're exactly right. We've got a 2-month gap,
Yeah.
and it hasn't gone through ARPA. Would you feel more comfortable, Commissioner Lee, if we continued this for 1 week?
Would it harm anything to continue 1 week?
It may. The reason is, I believe this was previously approved and for ratification.
Oh, it was ratified.
And the first ones got finished being put up today.
Oh.
So the ratification did go through.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Well, that changes the whole conversation. So I guess that.
I'm going to move
when we
to
look at
approve
the ARPA,
items. I'm going to move to approve items number 28 and 29 with the one exception of changing the word purchase to lease.
And I will second that motion.
Okay. All right, we got a motion and a second to approve Items 28 and 29, all in favor say aye.
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 And I do have a message from Peter Brown that says we approved this.
Okay. I just
So
don't
it
remember
did, I didn't remember it either.
I was
We've had
about-
so many things in those
I was about to
meetings.
text him and ask the question.
Yeah, he just sent me a Teams that said that this did get approved on our ARPA for the additional 2 months if necessary.
Okay. All right. There's just so many little boxes here and there that are going on. Okay, we tabled item number 33. Item number 34 is to approve and authorize the signing of a resolution approving the 2022 budget for the general fund and other budgetary funds of Utah County. And we have, looks like there's only one proposal on our agenda.
I think so. However, you and I both have agendas that we've looked at, and Ezra has been compiling the differences between our two proposals.
And I was with you on all of that, within $100,000 or so, just did my own paper. There are some things I'd like to address, but I feel that we can't do it at this point. And so I'm inclined to motion to accept what we have, but I want to maybe open a budget in a few months' time to look at these other items I've been trying to wrestle down and see if we can get them fitted into the budget. That's for a future discussion.
So are you making a motion?
Unless there's other comments, that was my biggest issue, was those items there, but I'm making a motion to accept the budget as presented here.
Okay, you're talking about, you're talking about the proposal that's on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion.
Which, sorry.
Is there are multiple, there's one identified
There's
as
this-
the Lee proposal.
Oh,
Is that
I
the
only
one?
saw one on there. Is there another one on there now?
Yeah, they've been adding.
34. There's the executive, excuse me, I have the resolution, the exhibit, tentative budget 1, and then lead proposal. Was there another one beyond that? That's
No,
my-
no, those are the three that I see. So just for clarification, it would be the one identified as Lee proposal. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yeah, so we have the
Well, there's one-
exhibit, tentative budget.
We have a tentative budget, we have the resolution,
And
We have
lead
Schedule A.
proposal.
and one proposal.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion, is to adopt the lead proposal. But as I mentioned, I say that with the caveat that in the coming months, I'm going to bring up some other items I'd like to see added later on.
Okay. Obviously, this is a budget, and budgets can be
Yes.
amended. So I do have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
I got a motion and a second to adopt the budget as proposed on our agenda.
I would like to discuss it a little bit more. Because I think that there have been some updates. I think that was the one from last week, right, that was uploaded. But then didn't you have some clarifications and some updates?
You know, there is a clarification, and Samantha, if you'd like to come up with a clarification, I did change, there was some fuel costs. So I handed out, well, maybe to back up, I got to back way up. So we've had budget discussions, days and days of budget discussions. We had public hearings. We had our work session last week on this issue. And so we've had lots of discussion back and forth. And that was the one I think you're referring to, that I gave you that one proposal.
Yes.
And so from that proposal, the only things that have changed that are in here now, there's some minor, not substantive changes that had happened, and then there's also a change because we got an email on the fuel. So the fuel cost was $700,000.
That's true, yes.
And then they're projecting that it's going to go to $800,000 by the end of the year. We don't know, but that was a projection. there were some articles out there saying that fuel costs could go up significantly. And so I see Richard shaking his head on there. And so what I did in this proposal is I changed that $700,000, which was the budgeted number, and put $1 million in there in that budgeted number instead.
Okay. So the one that was uploaded last week and the one that I saw this morning had a significantly different funding amount for the sheriff's department. So that's why I'm trying to clarify, which one are we looking at?
Oh, you're talking about, well, that was one, Rudy called me this afternoon.
Yeah, so one of the questions, so one quick question. I'm sorry, the one good thing about budgets, it finishes during the beginning of the holiday season, and you got to be a Rudolph to rock the outfit, okay? So I'm sorry. But
You got it.
anyways, when we're talking about fuel, there's two pieces to that. One of that, believe the fuel costs are in Fund 610, and then they get allocated out to all of the users throughout the county. So we got to make sure that if we're raising it, we have to raise the fuel cost in the motor pool fund, and then that would be reflected in increased lease fees, right? That's where it goes through lease? Or in the actuals on that. So it has to hit two different places. And because not all of that's general fund, it's going to take a little bit of working that through to figure out exactly where it belongs.
Okay.
So that's my number one concern with what has been said thus far.
Yeah.
And I have no problem adjusting the numbers to account for potentially higher fuel costs, because I think that that's definitely going to happen. But
You're talking about the equipment replacement?
No.
Because that was part of the discussion where there was some change and also capital improvement stuff.
Yeah,
that
so
was in
equipment
there too. There was
replacement and
$2
capital
million.
improvements. There was also some recapitalization costs that I wanted to make sure that
they were all taken care of.
in this one that's uploaded on the agenda.
It is, but it just doesn't show the same. But it's in there under the equipment replacement and also capital improvement from that sheet that was filled out.
Yeah, and
So what's the total funding in the sheriff's department on the one that we're looking at voting on?
Does the one on the network? There was a little bit of confusion on some of the numbers
Well, I see what
regarding
you're
that.
getting
So
at,
we had
Greg.
to fix a couple
The
of them
numbers
here.
changed.
Well, it looks like it went down, but it was moved to a different area.
Okay, so there weren't
it's
additional
not
things
like-
that were denied.
No,
It was
no,
just
yeah.
moved to
It was just
equipment.
moved to a different, yeah.
Was it moved to a separate
So-
restricted line number?
The numbers that were on the budget schedule from, when was it, yesterday or 2 days ago? That erroneously included some additional costs the sheriffs had requested
That's why we were confused about those numbers.
after
Okay.
the tentative budget was put together, so they were not included in tentative budget. And and they were erroneously picked up so that amount went down. It was about $2
Okay.
million roughly.
Okay, but it was just they were put into other funds. Okay, so that
Some of them, some of it is.
CIP, some of it was equipment replacement, some of it's recap.
Yeah, and
costs.
some of it's salaries, some of it's there's a whole bunch of several different things, and there's about $2 million worth that were erroneously
that was
added
about the
in the
amount that I saw that
original
went
one.
down.
And we found that, and that's
Okay, so
pulled
those were
out.
just corrections on what fund those are going to come out of.
Some of them, no, some of them don't belong in there at all. They're not just being moved to a fund. It's that they were not included. Commissioner Lee did not include those additional requests in the budget that he put forth. He put a lot of the stuff that was in the tentative budget was in there, but the stuff in general, I don't remember if there were any of those new requested items that were actually included.
So none of the new items were included.
Correct.
So including like the non-lethal force items.
Well, some of that might be in the equipment replacement fund, yes.
Some of that
Correct.
could be in the equipment
Correct.
replacement fund.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So that answers a few of my questions on the sheriff's budget. So of the new requests, some of the things were approved in equipment replacement, but none of the other
Correct.
items were
Yeah.
approved.
Like
Okay.
the salary, the new positions.
So like the new positions for wildland fire are not approved then?
Correct.
The additional
The trailer, there was a lot of trailers, there was, you know, several.
Even I didn't approve all those.
A lot of different things in there.
Right,
So
right.
there's quite a few of them. And that's, I'll be honest
But
with you,
like I
that's one of
did
the.
see on the new one, I did see that the Kubota for the shooting range was included in equipment replacement, but the ATV was not.
Yeah, I believe that would be correct. And the reason for that is the Kubota isn't, my understanding is that's not serviced by motor pool, so that cannot go into motor pool.
But it
and go
was in
into
equipment replacement.
Whereas the ATV would be serviced
Right.
by motor pool.
So then the additional request of the flatbed to haul the Kubota would not have been approved.
I believe that's
which
correct.
it's going to be kind of hard to move the Kubota if we don't have a flatbed to put it on to move it.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
It's kind of like getting the cart and not the horse. Okay, so there's a few little things that I wouldn't mind working out in that. The new budget that I saw that potentially we're voting on does not include, it doesn't include the positions for the elections division.
It includes a supervisor
Not in the elections division.
in the marriage.
One.
No, it includes one full-time person, but not a supervisor.
Right.
Correct.
So there's no supervisors in the marriage
Just the
license
one.
division.
Excuse me,
One
just
full,
the
one
one.
FTE, not a supervisor. And it doesn't allow for an increase in part-time staff if there's an increase in work. And it also doesn't allow for overtime for existing staff if there's an increase in work.
That was one of the reasons I mentioned when we started this, that there were some things I think that we can address, that I want to see addressed, and that we just are unable to get to at this junction. So what I would like to do is just wrap this up and talk about this in the coming months and open the budget up again down perhaps the spring or early summer. But for now, I'd like to go ahead and just continue the motion process.
So I would like to fully fund our elections. I would like to stop asking Nancy Pelosi, Spencer Cox, and Mark Zuckerberg to pay for our elections.
I think we are actually getting very close to that. So
then
think
let's
what I'll-
just throw the positions for an election security expert into the budget.
I think what I'll do instead is I'll just simply call the question and continue the motion.
Okay, so question's been called. That a question being called means a question to end debate and then have the vote. All in favor of ending debate or questions, say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye. That passes 2-0. So we'll call the question, we'll call the vote then as stated with the motion and the second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Nay.
That's a 2-1 as stated. Okay.
I would like to note that we did not fund elections. We did not fund the sheriff's department.
And that's not correct.
I'm willing to have that debate if you'd like.
Another time.
Right, you voted to cut debate. I see
Okay.
that.
All right, where's my agenda? Where'd my agenda go? Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item. There it is. And the next agenda item is number 35, which is adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 28 of the Utah County Code, separating and consolidating offices of the county clerk and county clerk auditor. Commissioner Sakovic.
This month marks 13 months since I first began this discussion with the previous county clerk auditor. I then did it months after that. In order to make sure I don't miss something, I'll read this. But today's agenda item is a result of extremely deep conversations for over 13 months. of the Utah County Commission's 1989 decision to combine the two positions of clerk auditor and clerk, excuse me, of the county clerk and county auditor. What we need to emphasize is the two positions are combined into one. So there's still, in my view, was two separate departments that were being overseen by one individual. My approach was to restore the significant roles of county clerk and county auditor, not expand government. And that's the emphasis of this is one position we're looking to bring back. We gathered facts through historical county records from the Clerk's Records Division, news articles, county codes, state codes, several conversations with the current and previous and past clerk auditors, with current and past elected officials, commercial auditing professionals, and held a work session in February 2021. And that was to discuss reasons to separate the potential timing. And those that participated, other than the commission, was the past clerk auditor, HR director, our chief civil attorney were present, and it was posted on YouTube. During the commission's February work session, which was about 10 months ago, we discussed Utah County's current and anticipated growth, the compelling need to prepare and focus on specialization to address resident needs. Before and after the midterm replacement nominated by Utah County Republican Party Central Committee in May 21, the new clerk auditor met with my senior policy advisor and held thorough and conceptual discussions. The clerk auditor developed a rough worksheet of what separating the departments might look like and what the potential costs might be like. Lastly, I met with him just a week ago, November 14th, to discuss this agenda item. And the discussion seemed to be pretty thorough, and we suggested possible relocation of offices at that point. I then had a phone meeting with the new chief deputy to the clerk auditor just November 29th. In April 1989, under the authority of Utah County Title 1763, Utah County Commission voted to combine the position of clerk auditor and clerk. And why did they do that? The duties of the then county clerk had been reduced by an act of the Utah State Legislature, and that the work of the clerk's office had been reduced drastically since the 4th District Court clerks were placed under state jurisdictions. Utah County's overall 1990 population was about 263,550, and 30 years later, 2020, census records 659,399 residents, just about a 150% increase in population. The county clerks and auditors departments have significantly expanded since 2019 to meet the growing demands on it. The Utah County Clerk records land ownerships, marriages, licenses, and now online marriages and passports. It coordinates also federal, state, county, municipal elections, not all, but many. Its online marriages are numbering in the many thousands, and the county mail-in ballot functions now support many municipal elections, making the process nearly continuous, even during off-election cycle periods. In contrast, I was looking to other counties where I live quite a bit, and that's Los Angeles County handles resident demands, municipal services, and economic development, very similar to Utah County. What it does, it provides land rights, recordings, marriages, passports, etc., for its 10,014,000 population, but with only 5, and they call them supervisors, but 5 commissioners through departments matching the needs. The economic development functions were principally managed by each Los Angeles County's 88 cities, with the county commissioner overseeing support of a set number of cities. And as Los Angeles County's had to adjust its staffing goals to support cities' growth, the Utah County must follow its own course, supporting city and resident needs that are unique to our own. But it's still at the same time similar to. Utah State Code further directs that counties having a taxable value, in other words, all tax rates on residential, commercial, agricultural lands, structures, vehicles, equipment, etc., of less than $100 million, the county clerk shall be ex officio auditor of the county. It is uncertain what the county's taxable value was in 1989, but it was significantly more than the threshold in the state code. Now, 32 years later, published in September of this year, in 2021, Utah State Tax Commission reports Utah County's 2020 total taxable value as $82 billion, $16 million, and some dollars beyond that. By county, it also provides locally assessed real taxable values. Taxable value is the gross taxable rates on all the things I just mentioned again. Utah County is shown as is the second largest county in the state of Utah, while state statute directs counties with taxable values less than $100 million to consolidate the functions of the clerk and auditor. It is silent on anything larger than. Today, the demands on Utah County clerk and auditor functions are measurably significantly higher due to population growth and need for increased personnel to support those offices. The need for specialization in those fields are also increasing. And actually, that's been a point of topic the last several months that I've been here. From my perspective, the general public's interest and focus has almost been exclusively on the clerk side of the office, specifically elections. Utah County and Utah as a whole appear to be above the fray of what we hear about in other states. We're untouched thus far. While elections is a significant role of the current clerk, there's a lot more. And broadly, the county clerk's duties include establish policy to issue all county marriage licenses, to keep a register of marriages as provided by law, establish policy to ensure that the county clerk or designee is available to, during business hours, to solemnize a legal marriage for which a marriage license has been issued, execute under the clerk's seal in the name of the county all deeds and conveyances of real estate conveyed to the county, take and certify acknowledgments and administer oaths, keep a fee book and provide as provided by law, and take charge of and safely keep the seal of the county, etc., and other records. And under the county clerk is a clerk to the county clerk, and that's a wide range of grocery lists of all recording proceedings, making full entries of resolutions and decisions, record votes of each member of the commission, prepare a certified duplicate list of all claims, deliver and leave to the county auditor and treasurer financial statements, file and preserve the reports to county officers, etc., very similar to that, a quite extensive list. And within Utah County, the county clerk is responsible for all national, state, county, and recently a growing number of municipal elections, as I mentioned earlier. To effectively carry out all those responsibilities, there's roughly 418 pages of statutory responsibilities within the Utah State Election Code. As to specialization, as I mentioned, the 14 county department executives, that includes elected and appointed, continue to bring up the need for specialization to meet county growth. And these 14 are independent of the 3 commissioners. The skill sets of the county clerk and county auditor have separate focus, or should have separate focus, and are vastly different in their roles. The combined role of clerk auditor cannot audit county clerk functions and performances. To attempt to do so would be, of course, a conflict of interest. So why now? Why separate the function of the county clerk and auditor at this point? Preparation for the presidential 2024 election. County population is anticipated to increase another 100,000 by 2025. Separation of powers permits independent audits of the county clerk functions, including election procedures. Both offices are extremely busy from September to November, and auditors tend to go into December and, of course, into January with the summaries of what the outside auditor provides. A separate office will enable specialized and give full focus to the duties of one department, not 2 departments' functions. The previous clerk auditor reported that the 2019 staff was essentially the same as it was in 1989. I think you said that verbally in February. I'll have to double check. And with that, modernization and specialization is needed and is now becoming, and we're achieving that with more work yet ahead, as we've talked about. While the county legislative body may not direct or supervise other elected county officers or their sworn deputies, it may generally direct and supervise all elected county officers and employees to ensure compliance with general county administrative ordinances, rules, or policies, and may examine and audit financial accounts of all county officers. The county executive, in this case, commission, is obligated to conduct planning studies and make recommendations related to financial, administrative, procedural, and operational plans, programs, and improvements in county government not inconsistent with state statute. As of today, the current clerk auditor is the county clerk, the county auditor, the county's budget officer, and the county's election officer. With the separation of the two executive roles, office equipment belonging to existing clerk auditor's office space may still be used by the separated departments in office spaces to be yet to be determined, as discussed, and I had mentioned with the current clerk auditor a week ago, November 24th. The location will be coordinated between the current clerk auditor, and I haven't talked to, but the public works officers, director, and of course, any affected county department executive. Their recommendations were reported we had discussed during the February 2nd, 2022 County Commission meeting, and anticipate the full commission will make the final approval from that recommendation. The cost in personnel for will be for the single restored clerk role, county clerk role, about roughly $122,000 plus benefits. The cost of infrastructure adjustments, of course, have to be added into that, but we have that already set aside. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in greater focus and efficiencies with the county clerk and county auditor department is expected to be realized. I had to do the same thing for the Marine Corps I had mentioned, and I asked a friend who continued on the Marine Corps much further than I, and he substantiated that I did have a significant role in saving the Marine Corps hundreds of millions of dollars in the form of greater efficiencies. And so that's what I came in the office to do with the county. But to wrap this up, given the growth in demand on the combined clerk auditor seat, while overseeing two distinct departmental functions and developing plans to expand staffing to best support functions within the two departments, there isn't a convenient time to make the changes. And the current clerk auditor, actually, we talked on that for some time last week. In fact, there's a virtual nonstop preparation for upcoming presidential, statewide, and municipal elections. All said, this really is the ideal time to ensure a widely noticed two county seat office seats that would be open for the 2022 ballot, published prior to the upcoming election cycle and not in the middle of an elected official's term, as sometimes may happen. We're forcing a political appointment instead of a countywide election. State law requires us to make notice no later than February 1, I believe, Mr. Shawcroft. That's still the case, of the election year, and to begin the new position on the first Monday of the following January, when in this case would be January 2nd, 2022. Taking care of this now allows for early and wide notice of potential candidates for potential candidates to campaign and to fill the restored position of county clerk in addition to the county auditor role. Lastly, and simply put, it is my belief that no department should be combined with the auditor. Auditors should always stand independent of the functions of an office to be audited. And again, we have not had any problems in the county. I'm looking down the road. So with that said, I recommend that approve today's agenda and vote to return to a separate pre-1989 county clerk and county auditor. End of my statement on that.
Okay, thank you. Just for note, and I'm going to assume that there's some comments, maybe some public comment on this too. We'll take that as, and just a short comment. I know that all three of us, and if I speak differently, you can let me know, have mentioned that it's, that the clerk auditor's office probably does need to be investigated for, in the sense of for a separation or split. I've heard that from all of us up here and from many in the county as well. So I've heard that. It's interesting to listen to your perspective on this, Commissioner, and what that looks like. Now we can take some public comment, or do we want to continue up here?
And say, well, we can continue up here unless people have things they want to say now, or you say I can. We can start. I mean, literally the very next item on the agenda is the resolution to formally establish an audit committee, and that audit committee would then direct all internal audits. This is a best practice. This is what it's done in many counties throughout the state. This is a recommended best practice from associations around the country, and that literally solves the problem of having the auditor have other functions without adding hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to our budget. It literally puts the power of directing an audit outside the elected auditor's office, allowing the audit committee to then direct the internal auditors to audit all divisions, including the financial division, which splitting the clerk auditor's office doesn't solve that problem. But creating an audit committee, agenda item number 36, does, without adding nearly $1 million to our budget.
And as I looked at it, it would not be anywhere near that. It would only be the one position that we'd add to. There would be infrastructure updates, of course, to separate the two bodies, but they would use their same desks, their same chairs, same computers. The initial cost to make those reposition them would be one item, but that would be a separate one-time cost, but it would not be $1 million or anything where close to that.
So are the clerk and auditor going to Rochambeau over who gets a chief deputy?
That's up to elected official.
But it's not, because you're only adding one position. So do the clerk and the auditor be like, rock, paper, scissors, I get the chief deputy?
It would be up to whoever the elected official is, decide who's going to be the deputy.
Right, but if you're only adding one position, then you're not adding a chief deputy, because that's a second position.
There may be enough staff structure now in place, one of them could be the chief deputy of the clerk.
So are we going to take a merit employee and tell them they're now an appointed employee? Because there's a process for that too.
Yeah, and that's something we can talk about down the road.
So you want to make a change now and then decide the details down the road. I kind of feel like I'm going to vote on something, but then I have to read it to see it's like I feel like I have to pass it to see what's in it, to quote Nancy Pelosi.
No, I'm not going to tell a elected official how they're going to organize. I can limit their funding, but I'm not going to tell them how to organize. That's up to the elected officials to do.
Actually, it's not, because the staffing plan is set by the commission.
Yes, but as I mentioned already, there is enough personnel there that one of them or more of them could serve as a deputy.
Right, so how are we going to take them as a merit employee and make them an appointed position?
That would be for the elected officials to decide.
Actually, that's not. That's for the commission to decide, because we set the staffing plan.
They will propose it and come back to us in February with an outline of what they could do. And if it doesn't offend the statutory issues or offend staffing levels that's already been set in place, then there should be no complication.
So I think it's clear and apparent that this hasn't been fully thought through on chief deputies, on the impact of the split, of recognizing that we have, in fact, in this room, an employee who's a merit employee who covers both the clerk functions and the auditor functions. And I think tearing him in half would be quite painful. And I think that as we go through this, we can't allow one elected official to decide what's going to happen with a joint employee. I'm not opposed to this in concept. I was the clerk auditor. It is a huge office. But what I'm hearing is that it's not been thought through, that we are going to have two elected officials fighting over existing employees, and the costs haven't been fully realized, and that that as we go through this, like I said, I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but right now we actually have efficiency built in by having Bert Harvey cover both tax admin and marriage licenses. We actually are adding efficiency into the office by combining positions. And what you're asking us to do is to separate positions, removing that efficiency. I think you're absolutely right. As the population grows, these positions should be separated. I think 2026 is a better glide path to put us on so that we can do that in a more natural way, instead of literally having an elected official show up on day one and not having a staff and having to fight over who someone else's staff is, and to boot, costing us hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that.
Again, it won't cost us hundreds of thousands. And it's up to the newly elected official to decide who he or she wants to have as deputy. And it's
right. So who gets Bert Harvey? Did they Rochambeau over that too?
It's up to the elected officials. It's not up to the commission.
That's my point. So we're going to ask two elected officials to Rochambeau over who gets Bert.
No, they will sort that out. And they've got plenty of time to do that. They're
But they can't set their own staffing plan. The commission does that.
They're very bright individuals. They can figure that out. We don't have to meddle that.
So we need to pass it to see what's in it. Gotcha.
So I want to clarify one thing. We have had this discussion with the county attorney's office when it comes to merit employees and appointed employees. So that has happened. There is a process for that to happen. It's not unusual, and we've also, through our staffing plan, taking some that were merited and put them in it as appointed, and some that are appointed and put them as merited. So it's not an unusual practice, to do that. And usually, and I don't know on the state statute side, I haven't looked at it, but a state statute side usually defines if somebody has and can have a deputy. And that state statute usually points out if they can. And if they can, the commission's always been fairly supportive of that as they come into office.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to adopt.
I think
Did I jump?
there are some
Public comment
comments,
first? Okay.
public comments. And you have one on Zoom? Okay. We'll do the ones in the room first, and then we'll do the one on Zoom.
Hi, my name is Christy Henshaw, and thank you, commissioners. I am here to speak in favor of this motion of splitting these two. I think that although you will run into, obviously, the first commissioners that do this, you're going to look at employee and staffing issues as you move things around internally. That does not stray from the fact that there's a principle here that should be followed. And I think the principle is the thing that needs to be looked at more than any staffing issues. And so the question that I would ask is, how does an auditing committee resolve the ethical conflict of interest? And I think that that is the biggest issue, is this conflict of interest. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it did seem like the position of the auditor is the one who proposes a tax increase. And then if you have a referendum by the people who want to counter that, then it is the clerk who is the signature inspector. And if I'm incorrect there, that seems like a massive conflict of interest when that is the same position and the same person. And so for me...
Actually, only the commissioners can propose a tax increase.
Right, they adopt it, but the auditor is the one who proposes it. Am I incorrect on that? Do they propose
No, the
it?
only people that can vote for a tax increase and can even propose one is the commission.
Okay. So there's no input that comes from the auditor on that?
Of course there's input. There's input that comes from every department. There's input that comes from the sheriff too.
Okay. So it appears that when they are having, inner politics within a department, that it still presents the same conflict of interest when everybody's vested in those conversations prior to, right?
Every department does.
Sure.
Every department is
So I still
vested, including the auditor, but also including the clerk,
Sure.
who's also over those
Sure.
signatures.
So when I was on city council in Idaho, we had a clerk that was also our auditor. And, oftentimes it was just thought of that they were looking at the city council's members voting and how they were spending the money, and which turned out that later on, and very nice person, she still is a great person, she's made restitution, but she ended up stealing $200,000 from the city. We had to get an external auditor to come in and look at all those things, and ever since then, it just really feels like those two should never be tangled. It is a separation of powers, like a fundamental separation of powers, that your auditor should not have any biases towards what they're doing as much as they can.
The separation wouldn't stop that. The auditor would still be in charge of all the finances and the internal audit.
Who would audit the clerk?
Well, they do now, but they also audit themselves for the financial processes.
Auditing themselves seems like a conflict of interest.
Right, which is why we just went through an RFP that you just heard the whole discussion of for an external auditor.
Sure. Fundamentally, I think an auditor should always be an island. They should stand alone, and I think it's a principle. So I'm speaking in favor of it. Thank you.
I'm Kathy Hindmarsh, and I'm from Provo. I feel like the duties of the auditor's office are to administer accounting records for the county funds, and the county auditor also audits the records and accounts of various county departments and verifies the validity of the legality of all the county disbursements. And it is supposed to be an elected position of 4 years. And so the people should be able to elect who their county auditor is. And we have done that in the past. And so now it's become a auditor and the clerk's office together. And I feel like that they should be separate entities, and no one should be combined with the auditor, because it's important for the auditor to be objective and be able to do their duties more objectively than and they are. It's greater efficiency by having the county auditor and the county clerks separated, because the county clerk's duties are over the marriage licenses and also the for the marriage licenses and voting. And so when you don't have anyone they should be different offices. And so that's how I feel.
Thank you.
My name is Kristen Chevrier, and I'm here to speak in favor of separating the two offices. We have, on the state level, we have the Lieutenant Governor's office and the Auditor's office separate, and I think it just makes common sense. I've never understood why the two offices were together to begin with, so I think it's a good move to separate them. That's my opinion. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Tamara Mullen. Good afternoon. I'm here to support the separation of the county auditor and county clerk. I think that Tom has done an amazing and very, very thorough job in his analysis, and it sounds like he got a lot of different perspectives and was able to put together a very comprehensive document, and thank you for sharing that with us. The most important thing to me is that I want to address the issue of elections and election audits. I believe that it's impossible to have an unbiased, valid, and reliable audit of the elections if the person who is auditing the election is the same person as the one who is running the election. I believe this inherent conflict of interest is something that cannot be overcome unless the two are separated. Let's see. I also feel that the position should be elected by we the people. This position serves us. Auditing the elections is something that we have a vested interest in. Our number one unalienable right is the right to a free and fair election, and this should be done not by someone who chooses an external auditor, but by we the people who choose the auditor as an elected official. Thank you.
Wendy Hart, I speak in favor of the proposal. Just a couple of thoughts. The first one is that if we were to propose at a statewide level to take the state auditor and combine him with the lieutenant governor, I think everybody would think that was kind of a ludicrous idea. So I appreciate that all three of you have thought this through and thought that this is a potentiality that we should be looking at. I am very interested to find out why in 1989 they thought those two were, more compatible The other thing that I find interesting is that most people don't know that in the state of Utah state statute, obviously I come from a school board perspective, every school board in the state of Utah is supposed to have their own auditor. I know Alpine School District has an audit division and an audit committee, and the auditor reports currently to the business administrator, who is the assistant superintendent, but state law requires the board themselves to have a separate auditor, and they go into detail that that auditor cannot have any affiliation or association with anyone who is currently employed in that school district. And so I find that very interesting that that's outlined for the local school boards. And so I think that the direction of separating out the county auditor from the county clerk's office and really from any other department is a good one. And I hope that you continue in that discussion. Thank you.
Lisa Shepard, I'm Commissioner Sackage's Senior Policy Advisor. I heard some conversation just a second ago regarding the budget and how that's developed. And I'd just like to notate that the budget officer is actually our county auditor. And the budget officer does set the tentative budget that is presented. As you well know, I just want to make sure that those that were listening understand that as well. So that is the auditor that does present that to you, as you well know. Obviously, I couldn't even tell you how many hours in research. And the last speaker had mentioned she'd like to know the history. I don't think you guys want to spend the probably 2 hours that I could go with you on this, and all the different people I've spoke with, and all the documents that I've poured over, all of the news articles that we have searched for and gone over, and all the elected officials that we've spoke with, current and past. And I would recommend that we adopt this. There's one thing I want to make sure in this is that it's actually a positive look on the clerk auditor department, because the clerk auditor department has done an incredible job at what they do. But that doesn't solve some of the issues that have been raised. I'm not going to go into the history. I can have that discussion with the person that asked about it. But it is no way, shape, or form anything to do with the against anybody, and actually it's just the opposite. I think we have an amazing a current clerk auditor who can effectively develop this plan as far as the plan goes, as to how and how many employees, and present that. In a previous conversation that I had with our clerk auditor, he has already outlined that, and he also did a spreadsheet that outlines it. It's already divided as far as cost center goes, as you can see how it happens. So I have every confidence that our current clerk auditor can make that decision and how to separate the public services department from the tax administration and all the marriages. And I commend the clerk auditor and the previous one on the growth and how you have met the public's demand. Thank you.
Any others from the room? Oh.
Commissioners, my name is Lyndon Cook. I'm a resident of Provo. I'd like to speak in favor of the motion to separate or to split the offices of clerk and auditor. My primary concern is that the clerks have more time to focus on the election and election results. I believe that the right to vote and a fair vote is the most fundamental of all rights. Without that, nothing else really matters. I'm not happy with the election. I've been advocating for a forensic audit, which we have not achieved. Commissioner suggested that we're above the fray. I believe we're not above the fray. I think we had a serious problem in Utah. No one seems to want to consider it, at least at the legislative level. Certainly the governor does not want to do it, the lieutenant governor. I kind of understand some of that. But if the departments were split, I would be in favor of the auditor basically attending to that side as they normally would, but the other office attend more to the elections, and perhaps have a member of the department of, not the clerk himself, responsible for the election in a more direct way, and the voter rolls be looked over and attended to. Can't get my head around the fact 76,000 people voted for Biden in this county. Where are they? 20,000 people voted for a third candidate. Where are they? I don't buy it. Thank you.
Oh, hold on. We can not do the clapping so that we don't have anybody feeling uncomfortable about being able to speak. Any others from the room? Come on up.
Well, because my name is Vic Devano, and because I've been a developer here for 30 years, I'm always concerned about budgets, and I think that's the important thing. Also, I've been involved in government in Salt Lake because my cousin, Reed Demon, has started at 18 years old, and he's 64, and he happens to be in an elected position, which he's won 3 consecutive times, and have followed his career and been his campaign manager. So I'm always concerned about budgets. So anytime he became a deputy, 3 different times to different departments. And the interesting thing is, you may have a position that has 120,000 and the deputy may make 80 or 90,000. And then depending upon who else is out of that in administrative positions and whatnot. So is there a guarantee in what we've done in the past and what you're going to do in the future that we're going to stay to some type of a budget as you split? I don't have a problem splitting. I'm just having a problem with making sure that budgets and things can be paid for so that we're not taxed anymore. I haven't taken any money the last couple of years in my position in my company because I wanted to make sure that I could weather storms. In government, they don't have to do that as much because sometimes they can write monopoly money, which we have a lot of going on the national, international situation. So I just want to make sure that whatever we do, and being a good citizen of the county, that we make sure we do it responsibly. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any others from the room? Okay, there was one online. Alice?
Yes, we have Tyson Zimmerman, if you would like to go ahead and unmute and proceed.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Hey, my name's Tyson Zimmerman. I'm a resident of Alpine. So just a quick note on the budget. I agree we want to be responsible with how we spend our money. Also feel like there are priorities, right? And elections should be top priorities in my view. And where we put those budget, this seems like a good idea of where we spend those dollars to separate those powers. I think the best argument though for splitting these roles was Josh himself. So a few months ago, I was in attendance in the meeting where we talked about conducting an audit, and Josh kind of inserted himself into that conversation. One of the first things he said, "My honor is at stake," and he was pretty forward about his views. He a couple other things he said. He said an audit has already been done, even though clearly I think most of us citizens feel like a full forensic audit has not been done. He said, go out and canvass your neighbors, and that will find fraudulent voting. And in my view, fraudulent voting happens with dead voters, with voters who have moved out of the area, phantom voters, and registered voters who didn't actually vote but who are recorded as voting. And none of that type of fraud will be uncovered by going out and canvassing your neighbors and asking them how they voted. So in my view, we need an auditor who can actually audit and not someone who is their sole purpose is to defend their honor, as Josh put it. I think Josh clearly demonstrates the conflict of interest that this position, and this is nothing against Josh. I don't know him. I have nothing against him. I think this just clearly demonstrates the conflict of interest that the auditor auditing yourself presents. And so I speak in favor of separating the roles of clerk and auditor to take away that conflict of interest. Thanks.
I think a couple of things it's important to note there. Number one, Josh was not the clerk in the last election. It wasn't his honor at stake. I was the clerk in the last election, and Josh is now the auditor. So that it's a little interesting there. He wouldn't be auditing himself. He'd be auditing me. And second of all, the elected auditor doesn't perform the election audit. They perform financial audits. So I'm going to repeat that for people that didn't hear. The elected auditor doesn't perform election audits. They perform financial audits. The responsibilities of the internal audit are financial compliance audits, not performance audits.
Okay. Again, as we look at this issue, I've been taking some notes on a few things, and for me on this issue, I am not prepared to cast a vote today on this issue. I would prefer that we work through some issues, and so I would like to make a proposal, not necessarily a motion. Can I make a proposal? The proposal would be that we informally, because Dave will probably get mad if I say formally, but informally get a few people together, and I'll name them: Dave Shawcroft, Josh Daniels, Lisa Shepard, Richard Nelson,
Ralph Barnes,
and get those 5 individuals together to go through and look at office space, look at staffing projections and needs, look at cost, look at legal requirements, and I do this a lot of this time. It's going to be for my benefit, just so that I can get more information and have more minds into it, because frankly I've been a lot more busy on the budget side, and so I think that it would be nice to be able to work through. I know, Commissioner, you've been working on this a long time, and Lisa has as well, and I applaud that as you're looking at it. Again, I would propose that we do that, and with a certain understanding coming from me, and that is I am in favor of looking at the split.
Yeah.
So I am in favor of looking at the split, but I want to make sure that at least on my perspective, that I've kind of rounded all the corners to a certain extent, and have as much information from others, and then that will also give me an opportunity to dig in as well, and then maybe we could come back in a week on a work session and have that group present to us on some of those items that have been thrown up in kind of a question.
I think that's a great, I just like you, I'm not opposed to the idea of a split, but I think there's 2 things. Number one, if we're going to do something, we don't do it half-assed, right? It needs to be done well. And number 2, we have to be able to afford it. I mean, we're looking at here saying we want to support elections, and yet we just passed a budget that did not fund a requested election security expert. Right. We're saying we need to split the office, but we literally just passed a budget that did not appoint a supervisor in the marriage license office, where there will literally be no supervisor. So the budget that was just passed on the previous agenda item did not put a supervisor in the marriage license office where it was requested, and did not fund election security. So if we are going to do this, I am not opposed to doing this at all. I just think that if we're going to do it, we have to be willing to pay for it. And we have to do it well, and we have to do it right. Otherwise, we're compromising elections. We're compromising auditing. So I think your suggestion is great, because if that committee can come back and they can give us answers to the questions, then I fully support that. So I like your approach, Commissioner Lee.
Okay. I'm going to point out, though, since we're dragging this back into a budget as well, when we're talking about election and election staff, I'm just going to go from 2017. 2017, there was 7, and there was 21 part-time. 2018, 6 and 44, 2019, 9 and 17, 2020, 12 and 119 part-time limited, and 2021, 10 and 88. So I see growth in there. I mean, when presidential election, 119 part-time, time limited, and 88 this year. It's the clerk auditor's responsibility to look and see what they need in there, and if they need to reallocate and move people around to get what's needed, I think that's totally appropriate. But I will not stand to sit there and say that this has not been funded, it doesn't move forward, because obviously the numbers show different.
Right, but it's been funded by grants. It's been funded by Nancy Pelosi, Spencer Cox, and Mark Zuckerberg. It's not been funded by the taxpayers of Utah County.
Full-time with benefits, these are individuals.
COVID positions.
That also stay on over and over. They stay through year through year. Obviously, there's some ups and downs that come because we do in the election cycle have presidential, municipal.
Right.
So it does have an ebb and flow back and forth as you ramp up and down.
Also, in 2017, we sent 69,000 Republican ballots to non-Republicans. We also had over 30,000 ballots returned to sender in 2017. In 2018, we were called the epicenter of dysfunction by the governor. In 2019, we were heralded as an icon, and in 2020, we were also the first county in the state to give the results.
Right, and you did that with 9 full-time employees and 17 time limited.
Right, and 2 of them were funded by ARPA, and 1 of them was funded by Mark Zuckerberg.
Keep in mind the time-limited numbers.
Hold on. This is not open mic. And so that's the discussion that we're having.
Right.
Is that we can have those discussions
Right,
back
and I
forth.
agree. Like, it did take more manpower, and that manpower was funded by Nancy Pelosi and Mark Zuckerberg.
Well, I mean, you accepted it, so.
Right, because
You
I had no other
accepted the
choice.
funding.
Because I had no other choice.
And so anyway, there's some discretion in that as we're looking for. But anyway, that's moving now to the issue that we have on hand. That's what I'd like to see if we were to informally put that group together and have that discussion. Commissioner,
I'm happy to make a motion that we continue this 1 week
Yeah.
with
the named 5 persons. Yes.
And then we'll put on there for a work session as
Yes.
well. Okay.
Yeah, for a work session? Yeah,
So
I will second that.
So I
It
wanna
would
make sure
go on as a work
goes-
session.
It goes on as a work session and as
an agenda
the
item, yes.
So we do the work session first and then the
Then the
agenda
agenda item, yes.
Okay. I got a motion to that. Is there still a second?
Give me 1 second. I gotta make sure that's not the one I'm gonna miss.
Nope, it's not. I looked.
Okay. I'm like,
It's the next one.
okay, it's the next one. Okay, yeah, then I'll second that motion.
Yeah, I got a motion and a second to continue this 1 week since I'm the one that proposed that, I'll get with the staff members on that to inform them. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay. Number 36 is to adopt a resolution formally establishing an audit committee.
I make a motion that we strike that based on agenda number 35 and discussions that were part of that and what we had talked about last week. The elected officials cannot delegate their statutory responsibilities, and that we already have a auditor, deputy auditor, and we have, I believe, 3 auditors assigned to that department currently, so that they could be the audit committee.
Oh, and that's a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion to strike agenda item number 26.
I would like to,
Is there a second?
no, I would like to have a substitute motion to continue for 1 week.
Let me see if there's a second, and then we can have a substitute motion. I'll second that motion. Okay, now,
Now, I would like a substitute motion to continue for 1 week.
is there a second? Okay, that fails for lack of second, so all in favor of striking agenda item number 36, say aye.
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 No.
Opposed? Okay, that's 2-1. All right, that takes us to the end of our regular agenda with our closed meetings still to go. Is there any general public comment? Okay. Thank you. We'll move into our closed meetings. Oh, wait, hold on.
Hold on.
Sorry, Eldon, I know, I saw you back there and then you moved seats on us and then we were wondering where you went.
Alice, my name is Eldon A. News.
Hey, Eldon, how are you?
It's good to be with you here today. I was really happy to hear you say half-assed. That made me feel really good about you, Commissioner Gardner.
I do own quite a few pair of cowboy boots, if it makes you feel any better.
But I was disappointed because you didn't. None of you showed up at our meeting, and I waited 3 hours there in the cold, and nobody showed up.
We had a Board of Equalization meeting.
Okay,
Yeah,
but I did go with. There was Clay, with Senator Romney, and then also Nate with Owens.
I saw
group.
him here.
Yeah, Clay left. But anyway, we need to see if we can get I kind of said something unfortunate to you, Commissioner Sakovich, last time anyway, you are as far as I'm concerned, you are the best one of the three. Okay. But anyway,
you mean the best man of the three, right?
What's that?
You mean the best man of the three,
best
right?
man of the three. But I was wondering if we could get a meeting together, because Clay and Nate and Senator Romney wanted to see if we could all get together sometime before the first of the year for about 2 hours and go over some things, because there are some federal funds that they have available, but we just need to see if we can get the county involved and us ranchers involved and a whole bunch of people, Forest Service, the wildlife people. Also, we need Richard back there. He just messes around, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's still there.
All we have to do is schedule it.
Okay, so can you give me a day?
You just schedule it with us.
Can you give me a day and we will.
Maybe you can get a hold of one of the senior policy advisors and
There's
work that out.
two of them here. Well, they're all three here.
Let's just
So
go ahead and set a date, and then I'll make
they can
sure
get with you.
that we accommodate you, because I'm most important, and then you folks,
Okay.
besides me.
And then Senator Romney third.
Yeah,
enough.
he's somewhere back
So
in
our
there.
senior policies are here. They can meet with you right after and get a date
Okay,
that works.
so you can't give me a date right now? For heck's sakes.
They tell me where I need to go.
Okay, so which ones are the senior
One
folks
right there is Brian. Ezra's right there, and Lisa's right over
They're
here.
just kids, though. All right, we will then.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and do that. But now it was really a good meeting, though, and I wish you'd been there, because we took after we waited for so long, we took a long time, and they showed all of the damage that was done and so forth. And what they'd like to do, or what we're kind of proposing, is we just build a whole road, which will cost lots of money. But I think there are funds there from the federal government that can help us if we all kind of contribute.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'd like to get together and see what we can do. Because right now, there's between one end of the canyon to the other is about 6 miles. If you're horseback, like I've got $16,000 worth of cattle that I can't find. It's just really a hard deal to go 5 miles in, 5 miles out. It takes almost all day long. So I'm sure you're more concerned about me than most anything else. Isn't that right, Mrs. Gardner?
Absolutely.
Also, I might get into trouble, but when I was sitting in the back here, and all of a sudden I saw a young lady walk up, and I thought, what in the world is that young person walking up there like she owns the world? And then I saw it was you that was there. I walked up to the stand.
Yeah, on my birthday, I'm going to turn 29.
Also, okay, all righty. Thanks
Again.
a lot. Let's see. Also, one of the things I'm seeing now is that the whole world is building out there. Pretty soon, we're going to have to go to San Pete in order to get our ranch and farm photos, because every time I turn around, somebody's building. We need to maybe get somebody who can get crazy and not care about what anybody thinks, and see if we can put something under control with the building that's going on. And Eldon A. News might be that answer. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thanks,
Bye.
Eldon.
Thanks, Eldon.
Right. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, your phone's here, sir.
Eldon, you
Eldon.
forgot your phone.
You
Your
need a
phone.
Thank you. It's just part of regular public comment, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Public
Okay, thank
comment.
you. So Lisa Shepherd, Commission Office. I just wanted to state that this was not half-baked. The simple fact that we have several, if you can see this folder, and there's lots more, we have sketched out how, as well as when we worked with the current clerk auditor, how to divide. We have all sorts of information from HR. We have lots of information. But after Commissioner Sakovic met with the current clerk auditor, then there was a decision made between the two of them that they would make that decision and present it. And so that's why we didn't present all of that today. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also want to note that the significant increase in time-limited staff in 2020 was because there were 3 elections, and federal regulations required us to W-2 all of those employees that previously were not W-2'd. That will only happen in presidential years, but it will happen every presidential year that there is a Super Tuesday election in Utah.
Right. Okay. All right. We'll move to our closed meetings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.